Hello, everyone. Welcome to Climate Lounge, a vibe shift for your day. Today, we are here with some of the Talk to Me About Water members, as usual, as well as our special guest, Lafayette Cruise. So I would love if everyone could quickly introduce yourselves. I'm Amelia Winger-Bearskin, your host, and I'll pass it over to Lafayette.
Hello, I'm Lafayette Cruise. I'm an urban planner and a futurist. Polychrome futurist, lecturer, facilitator, world builder, all the above. Currently consulting and teaching at the Rhode Island School of Design in their architecture department. And I'll pass it to Eamon.
Awesome.
Hello, I'm Eamon. I'm a writer and I teach at UF, and I'm so upset about my camera right now. And that's what's going on.
Well, we'll have you kind of strobe in and out, it'd be like Eamon, not Eamon, Eamon, not Eamon. There you go, Eamon. Not Eamon. All right, I guess Noor, you're up next.
Yes, this is Noor. I am also a member of Talk to Me About Water, and I'm the co-founder of One of Many Studio. I also have happened to spend some time in the futures and speculative design space over the last few years. So I multi-hyphenated human, like all of you in this room today, and it's cool to be with you again. It feels like a reunion.
Absolutely. Have you and Lafayette ever met in a futurist space?
Yes, of course.
You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we met in the same time that I met you, Amelia, at the Four Freedoms Congress, and I actually attended the Guild of Future Architects workshop that Lafayette was leading. And then since Lafayette was a big supporter, like you, Amelia, of the Resilience 2032 project, and did some role play and world building with us in the year 2032.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What was your workshop about, Lafayette?
So it was Futurist Writers Room, the program that Tony Patrick, Rob Sinclair, and your previous guest, Mariba Fatunde, and I co-created for world building. And so we had done we had modeled sort of a speculative, an alternative past and speculative future for Wisconsin in the lead up to the 2020 election. And then, we invited guests to come and create their own alternative pasts and speculative futures and really engage in radical imagination. I was like, I guess we should probably mention the Guild of Future Architects. That is where we met.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us, those of us who weren't at that session. I've been at other Futurist Writer Room sessions, but I wasn't at that one. I think I was doing a different thing at the same time. We were all doing so many things at that Congress, right?
Yeah.
We're like jumping around. And we just got joined by another member of Talk to Me About Water. This is Martha Bearskin. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Martha Bearskin. I'm a computer scientist. I'm a data storyteller. I work primarily in data publication for the federal government, specifically in water data. And I'm happy to be here with everybody. So good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's morning for me over here in the Midwest.
Okay, Midwest.
Got two Midwesterners up here, so that's
there we
go.
Good. Yeah.
Got some cold, got some warm in Florida, got some cold. Actually, I don't think Nora's very cold right now, but
yeah, I'm not. I'm enjoying the sun of California. I'm in LA.
Oh,
nice. Nicest weather on the call right now. So.
How long are you going to be in LA?
Until the 20th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Posted up in LA.
Yes.
Awesome. I mean, this is the moment for a New Yorker or New York-based person to be in LA. So yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Anywhere
else. Later this week, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm really excited. I'm excited to see you.
Every time we go to any city, we have to party with Noor. So
yeah, it's a requirement. It's a requirement.
Plans are like, if you want to go to New Orleans at some point, just let me know.
Yeah, she just drops a pin, and we all just like mob up. It's like a flash mob of Noor friends.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm just following you around the country. That's what's happening.
We're both following each other, so we're just like doing a loop around the globe, sort of like chasing each other.
That's what
we do.
globetrotting should be, right? Like it should just be friend following.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Martha, we were all just talking about how we all met at this conference in LA. So now Nora's really in the nexus of where we all first
Amazing.
met
Yeah.
for the first time. We had a taco adventure with Lafayette and me and Eamon and Tony Patrick and Robert. And
Can you go to LA and not have a taco adventure?
no, you can't go to LA and not have a taco.
Yeah.
Impossible.
I dropped Amelia off at the party in the hills at that place Sharon was renting, and then I was like, no chance in hell I'm going to this party. Found some tacos, picked y'all up and said, guys, I found the best tacos. And we went back to the same taco truck.
Oh, nice.
It was great.
Amazing.
It's called like,
No party beats good tacos.
No, it's
That's right.
incredible. Unless the party is a taco party, like
Wow.
or then that's like the perfect moment right there. But yeah, that's amazing. I went to, I think I'm trying to remember which, I've been to a bunch of your Futurist Writers Room moments, Lafayette. And I think I went to one in person in New York at NYU, which was with a bunch of ITPers, which was really fun. What were so I like the idea of how they work, where you pick a point in the past and you imagine that the past happened differently in some way, the inflection point, right? And then you have to imagine what like implications that has on the present, but then also on the future. What are I don't know if there are any interesting ones you want to share with us today that you just were like, how did that one go in that direction, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, which, like, I mean, I just remember a piece that Mightybo did in response where it was like, so post-pandemic when there's sort of a lot of efforts to try and decrease the prison population, so people were being let out on leave. And so I was imagining if that was allowed to stay permanent, in his speculative future, we developed technology to like not even communicate, like integrate ourselves with trees. And so this like monastic tree human community, and sort of just like, it was like I don't even know how to, other than like what happens if we were like on the path to abolition, but then also on the path to like really being in relationship with nature instead of trying to be like have the separation between like man and nature or like modernity and nature. I'm trying to think what else. Like that. It's one of those like, oh, I love them all, and I can tell you.
I mean, sure, it's like all your children, right?
I really, it's like I enjoy the stories that come from them. And it's also hard because I feel like I end up learning lessons from folks. Because I remember one we did about it's like the future of food, and it's where I learned about is it Frank Butts? Someone Butts, who was Nixon's Secretary of Agriculture, who said get big or get out, and sort of just like destroyed small farming. The ecosystem that we have now, that mad. So imagining.
Amelia, the plumbers are here.
Oh, that's what Cowboy is like. Hey.
Yeah, Cowboy's like, hurry, Eamon, I'll pull you off the stream if you want to let them in.
But yeah, and it was just like imagining like what is a national food policy that is more local and like ecologically conscious, and like how that would change sort of the world we live in today. Because we got a lot of the discussions like, oh, food deserts. It's like, well, that naturalizes hunger when it's like, especially in the United States, hunger is manufactured. When we understand how much of the plant life and animal life, like there's so much of this land that is edible that like indigenous folks, formerly enslaved folks, like had a knowledge of cultivating, but we've decided no, we want to manufacture hunger. So again, it was going back to like, cool, we encourage more small farming. We have a lot more ecologically based and regionally based food systems and like food palettes. How is a well-fed, and I can't remember what story we came up with, but it's like, what is a well-fed future?
That's awesome. I really like that. I remember I was in one of them where we talked about trees. I don't think it was the Future of Food one, but it was another one. And I thought about all of the data that we have, Martha, a data scientist about water, but I was thinking about the data we have on plant life and trees. And I thought, as people start thinking of aggregate data being part of policy, right? Like, oh, what if all of it became so data driven? Like all this policy making could be based on hard scientific facts. And I was like, well, would we have then voting blocks that would be from the water systems and the plant life and the trees, so that we have data and information from them? And could that data and information be a voting block, a lobby? Would you be able to say, okay, there's aggregate amounts of votes in our democracy for this data? This data is real and true scientific information. Could that vote for its own self and its own, preservation, because it's an important part of our culture? And I shared this idea at a symposium in Berlin, and people like, whoa, they got so angry at me. They said that I was anthropomorphizing trees and imagining that I could talk to them and all this kind of nonsense. And I was just like, do you know what data is?
Yeah.
You want to come in here and with the dog?
No, I can't.
Okay.
Come on, dogs. Come on.
Wait, I was like, wait, did you suggest this in a Futurist Writers Room, or have we talked about this? Because I remember
it was in a Futurist Writers Room, but I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we anthropomorphize, or also like that's anthropomorphizing an abstraction, defining humanity as an abstraction, data as an abstraction. We can, everything is abstracted. You can deal with this.
Right. Yeah, no, but it was someone said to me on the panel that, like, if Amelia can stop playing house with her little doll trees, then maybe we can think of like hard science. I was like, what? What do they think like data is? Like, we understand how these systems work. We could protect those systems by being like, what is the data telling us? Like, are those trees thriving? Are they actually thriving?
Right.
Like, should they be able to vote? Or go for it, Martha.
Oh, I was going to say, and why do we separate ourselves from that? By saying like, oh, these trees are, like turning these trees into their own thing. Well, they are, but they're part of our ecosystem. They're part of our survival. Yeah. Like, why is that data separate? Why do we think it's separate from our data about ourselves?
Yeah.
We interact with, we're in relation to, we need them to breathe.
Exactly. It's like the reciprocity of it all, and the moment we choose to like dismiss that or disqualify it, it's like we're disqualifying and dismissing the connectedness of it all. And I feel like it's by design that everything has to be compartmentalized, or in a binary,
It keeps us away from each other, I think. When you were talking about the tree system, and like being like, or these tree people we've turned into, I think that's what you're kind of talking about, tree people, and connecting more with nature. But I was thinking, oh, well, that means like connecting more with each other because of how roots, like trees and roots, like we know how they share so much and they're so connected to each other. And so are we as people, but we dismiss it so much. And we do so much to like keep each other away from each other because we know how strong we'd be if we all like grew our roots together and shared all of our data and information.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting. It's like, I feel like I spent a lot of the pandemic sort of like sitting in my yard in Wisconsin and just like meditating on trees and like prairie grass, thinking about like, oh yeah, they are very connected, but also very slow. And like things that get that big have to move very slowly and very intentionally. And like, if we, like, we would have to sort of, as a society, as a global society, either move very slowly together or like get a little bit smaller and still slower, but you'd have to slow down and really connect. And like, I don't know if people, as we see with our response to this global pandemic, I don't think people want to slow down, but it would make things so much better.
I disagree with that. I think people do want to slow down.
Sure.
I think people do. We just don't know how. We don't know how to change it to be able to slow down. But I think everyone does. Is anyone else's Instagram feed filled with people talking about like naps and all this year being like all about naps? I mean, come on.
No.
Yes. Yeah. As a notorious napper, I was like, finally, people are understanding how I've been trying to live my
Exactly. The trees are telling us, take a nap, guys.
Yeah.
For a couple of centuries, take a nap, guys. We'll fix everything. I love trees, guys. I want to be a tree. I hope that is my next life, as a tree. So I'm nerding out on trees here.
Yes.
My family has this tradition of watching. Well, we always do a marathon around like Christmas and New Year's, and it's usually The Godfather or Lord of the Rings.
Amazing.
Nice.
And like I've always loved the ends. It's like I just want to be slow and old and tend to trees in an old forest. Let me just talk slowly, be slow, smell fresh air, sleep for however long, be an ant.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I mean, we know, those of us who have been studying like how social media works or how media is working, that it's actually like the quickest and most fast cycle, like getting people to click to something, maybe not necessarily even read it, but just like click, react, share is how a lot of these algorithms are pushing our interaction online. So I think we have a skewed vision of what we think people want to do. We think people want to like click, react, share, like have the quickest, and usually it prioritizes a negative response, like a doom scrolling or a, oh, I can't believe this is happening, quick share and like tell all my friends. And when's the last time everyone's written you and been like, help, you have to pay attention to this like video of a tree? It's like usually it's something like really disastrous or whatever. So it would be also interesting if our digital selves could reflect that a little bit more, right? Like that slowness, but it seems to be anti the way that the infrastructure of it has been developed anyways, when it comes to ad-based interwebbing. I mean,
but how fast can it get until we were just like over it and so bored of it that it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Will we slow down again because we'll just be like, okay, we're so bored of it being so quick and like we have no attention span left.
Well, because I was joking with my younger brother and sister, because they both like periodically like delete TikTok and Instagram. And like, yeah, that's healthy. I need to do that. I used to be better at that. But also, if you stay off too long, you're not going to be able to keep up with everything. It's like what happens when you get left behind? Which is what I keep wondering. It's like, I'm not part of I'm like the edgy, not even the edgy youth culture. I'm not the youth anymore. I'm not going to keep up forever. What happens when I can't and when I have to like hop off? Yeah. Interesting.
I know if I had an AI avatar of myself in the online space, it would mostly just, I think I would love it to give me a summary, like, okay, you've been gone for 2 months. Most of it kind of trash. One interesting thing, your friend got married. Oh, okay, cool. What do we think about who they married? Oh, interesting. All right, great. Just give me the gossip of only like the things I want.
Here's the top 5 things that went viral while you were out, so
Here's the new slang that they're throwing around.
Right.
Here's how it's
Yeah.
Here's
the update to the app. We changed everything and you can't find anything anymore.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Like
we all
Oh, go ahead.
No, please. I was gonna say just that you can kind of do that today with managing your notifications. Like I kind of do that where I've muted all my notifications, but then I get a summary.
Ooh, nice.
So it doesn't bother me as much, and I kind of get to control when I want to, get my top 5. I mean, I have to go through. It's more like top 50
Right.
by 5 p.m. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's still like I really appreciate that feature. I feel more in control of how the information gets to me.
Social media. I mean, I know you all are talking to me about water. I'm very curious about what you as a water data scientist do. I'm assuming you probably talked about this on multiple streams, but like, do you focus on a specific body of water or just like?
So I work for the USGS. And so we do all the like mapping of the United States. And so we collect all of the GIS data. And so I mostly work with the water. So yeah, it's like the water of all of the country, all the different waterways and things like that. And I work in publication, so I help publish everything on the web. Because believe it or not, we like still have things that were like in, you know, paper form, PDFs, things like that.
Having had to like map waterways in Chicago and Illinois, I've used that. So thank you.
Yes. And that's my big thing too, is I'm all about free and open data. And so we have all that with our government, you know, so don't ever pay for that data, guys.
Yeah. You know what, this is a fun fact, but when I did the writer's room with you, Lafayette, you know, I was in the group that decided the inflection point back in history was creating a Water Protection Act.
Oh, yeah.
I can't recall if we called it the Water Protection Act. I think it was the Water Protection Act. Yeah. And how it would have changed the trajectory of the way that we relate to water. And so it's funny that water has always been such a big part of all the imaginings of the future, because it can't not be, you know. I wish that I had some of the notes from that session. Do you? I'm so curious.
Probably. In my mind, that was like both yesterday and 20 years ago. So
I know. I feel that. Yeah.
Because I haven't been back to LA since.
Cool.
That was 3 years ago at this point. Which is
That was, I think, the last trip all of us did before quarantine. So it was like, it definitely felt like the before times. You know?
Yeah.
Actually, it was funny. That was a trip where I was like, oh, I don't have to be cold in the winter.
Another way.
Everyone from warm places told me that, and I was like, no, it's great. This builds character. And I was like, I don't have to do this, actually. Most animals, most things in nature either kind of slow down in the winter or they go somewhere warm. What am I doing?
Yeah, or a cave, nice warm bear cave, right? Just like
drop your leaves, shut down for a little bit, freeze over.
Bears
migrate.
Yeah, migrate and bears. Bears are a big inspiration for me. I feel like love them.
It was telling me, I feel like the fun tree fact that I learned was that like the protein or the oils and nuts, how they change in like when they drop, so that they become like I'm not explaining this well, but someone was talking about how the oils and nuts change to be more complex, so that higher animals, when they eat them, are actually able to sleep off of them. So just a way in just a weird way in which like trees also change their chemistry at a type of season. So, and it's not necessarily for animals to hibernate, but it is for like the propagation of their seeds. But it just ends up being better for hibernation because of the more complex oils.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean with separate countries? We've learned to be with each other.
Yeah, co-evolved, so to speak, right? Like everything.
You know?
Yeah, that's that's so amazing. Oh, so many good tree facts. Last night I went on a deep dive on seed keeping collectives all over the US. I'm like not even a quarter of the way through like all my research I found just in one night. It's so incredible. When I lived in Nashville, they had a seed library at the public library. So you'd bring your library card and you'd be able to give seeds or take seeds and then have them in your garden. And you had to like sign this thing saying that the seeds were like healthy and heirloom, or, you know, whatever the certain way they described how to harvest the seeds like ethically and keep them and store them and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Because obviously seeds can become contaminated, right? Yeah. So yeah, it was really, I remembered that, and I was like, I wonder if all libraries have that. And the short answer is a lot of them do, right? Like a ton of them do, which is really interesting. So I've been just like, I don't know. It's a deep hole I'm going in, but I'm really fascinated by how many people are, have been doing this process of keeping seeds, giving seeds, sharing seeds. Obviously, that's an interesting organizational style that you need people to actually take them and use them, right? Like you can't just hold on to them. I mean, I know there are a lot of famous seed vaults all over the world that corporations have and countries have, but people in the sense are like, yeah, we need people to use these so that, they can like help the environment and help the local like bug population and all that, right?
Yeah. I have a like friend and former coworker back in Chicago who's probably one of the closest things to an Ent, like a Midwestern Ent that I know. He just like, I think he's like a certified Chicago tree keeper.
Amazing.
I love his Instagram page because he always posts stories about like, here are the natural wildflowers or like prairie grasses native to Illinois, and here's how we maintain it. Here's what's going on to like maintain the prairies. But he just got engaged, which if he's watching, or this, congratulations, Jared.
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah.
Cheers.
But they, in preparation for his wedding, he and his fiance are like, I don't know where they're doing it, but I think they're like planting a bunch of like native wildflowers in their garden, in their parents' garden somewhere, because they're like, cool, we've been doing this work to like get the land ready so that we can keep cultivating those. And like, I want that. I keep trying to convince my parents, like, hey, we should like plant more wildflowers, but also because one, to be pretty, we need more pollinators, but also, I think there's some beauty in wildflowers and prairie flowers. They don't have to all be tropical flowers to be, or like annuals to be worth our admiration.
Yeah, absolutely. And me and Martha and Noor and Eamon were actually recently in Miami, and we were walking under a tree that was in a mall. It was just a giant tree in the middle of like the square of a mall, and it was so overgrown outside of its little like prescribed area. It was like massive. And there were just hundreds of orchids falling down from it that were growing, because they're kind of like they grow symbiotic tree. Yeah, there's like drop these giant, very alien looking pods, but like hundreds of orchids. And I told my friend Maria, and she's like, yeah, I mean, in Taiwan, that is our wildflower, right? Like that's just the wildflower. And I was like, yeah, same with Miami, right? It's just the wildflower. But it's interesting that the wildflower from one area is like super fancy, important flower, the fashion of flowers, right?
Truly. I've been, as I like look at all my like potted plants that are not from this climate, I've been trying to figure out how to like readjust the beauty I see in like the plants around me. Because yeah, similarly, I like traveled to Mexico City. I was like, oh, this is what my plants look like when they're like out in the wild with their family and like thriving.
Oh.
I don't know if they want to be in a pot.
Right, in the cold. They don't like winter.
Take them on a trip to LA.
Come on, guys, we're ready to go visit your family.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't keep any plants alive in Florida. I haven't figured it out yet. So I just put them all outside, and outside, like you cannot stop the growth. Yeah. Like you stick them outside, and then 3 days you need like a machete to see anything. And they're like, they become huge and insane. But like inside, I can't keep a plant alive. But outside, it's where they want to live.
To just be like, yeah, I'm gonna just have a garden thriving around me. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm like thinking about water. Well, one, because of your mapping, but then also thinking about like how much I miss Lake Michigan, because I've seen people like posting videos of Lake Michigan, and it's like, oh yeah, I miss the Great Lakes. Like the coasts are great. The coasts are fine. I miss how easy it was to just like how easy it was to get to the expanse of water and be like, oh, one, I know where this water, I like had to study the history of this water and I feel a connection to it. But also like, yeah, being in Chicago or like in Wisconsin, it's so easy to just get to water. in a way that, at least here in Rhode Island, it doesn't feel as easy.
Yeah, you have the very cold beaches, right?
Yeah. But like, I love a cold beach. I love the uncanny deep winter. When I was in undergrad, I would often on a late night to like take a break from work. I would go, especially when the moon was out, to the lake. And when the lake was freezing more regularly, you'd get this uncanny thing where there'd be snow on the ground and snow on the lake ice. And so you wouldn't really know where the land of the lake ended, but like it would just be kind of undulating, and it would just be very, and like the moon would also be there. It's just like, what is this alien world? It's very hypnotic. Like, why is a land moving like that? And it would just be not a little hypnotic. I would just like sit there and like contemplate the cold. I mean, I was very bundled up, but yeah, just like contemplate the cold in existence as the lake undulated.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah. I don't know how often the lake is freezing like that anymore and how much snow we're getting, but yeah.
Yeah. Did you used to ice skate like on frozen, like small parts or small ponds or things like that?
I feel like I ice skate maybe once a year, and it's always like at an ice rink. Like some friends wanted to go ice skating recently, and like my ankles hurt. My ankles are gonna hurt. I don't want to do this. Yeah. But I wish I'm like from that like small section of Wisconsin where like I didn't grow up playing hockey. I didn't grow up ice skating, or like we would go to like the ice center, but like I wasn't. Also, my parents aren't from Wisconsin, so like we didn't do the winter activities, the winter sports. Yeah. Other than like walking through the snow and snowball fights and snow forts.
That's amazing though. Snow forts, snowball fights. It's the best stuff.
Yeah. Ice skating?
I did, but like my son, he's always a trooper. He will try it, but cannot stand up. Like he's on the wall the whole time. And he's like, it's okay, guys. It's all right. Just keep, just keep going. But like me and Martha used to just like ice skate, but without like real, no actual skates, just on frozen ponds. You just essentially just run and slide and just in our
with your like, those snow boots that looked like moon boots.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We would just like slide around. We weren't really like skating so much as like chaos,
This is also fun.
We probably did better. I think we would have probably massively hurt ourselves, like we did in our roller skating rink that we had in our basement, which was also very fun and very dangerous. It's all concrete.
Yeah.
Just very wild children. So
our parents let us be pretty wild, which I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, Eamon skis. I can't ski. I mean, I've tried to ski and I almost murdered myself many times, but Eamon skis.
I tear it up, man.
You like a downhill skier or like a cross country skier?
Oh, downhill. I'm too lazy for cross country, man. The way to be good at skiing is to just not have concern for your well-being. So just point those suckers down and let's go. Just go. Yeah, you only fall if you turn, so don't turn.
Don't turn. Yup. Yeah. No, I've only done it a couple times.
Last time I went skiing, I only fell because I tried to play with my phone. So
what?
Why would you do that?
Trying to film yourself?
I was listening to music and I wanted to change the song. I was not even moving. I was standing still. I fell over.
Yeah, we could say that you did that to yourself.
Yeah, well, that would be pretty rude, so I don't know why you'd say that.
But the snow caught you. You got caught in a nice, fluffy, freezing thing.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, me and Tristan were riding snowmobiles while he was doing that because we're like, we can't ski. So
that is another thing that I haven't done, but always like we grew up around like snowmobile trails. I just like I never did that, or didn't have friends who had snowmobiles. So I just never. Also, I think my parents were like, "You're gonna hurt yourself."
Yeah, they're incredibly dangerous.
But they look so fun, and as like skiing and snowmobiling. I remember we had a ski trip in middle school that we could have signed up for, which like skiing in Wisconsin is like a really big hill. And my mom was like, no. And so after that, I feel like that was the inflection point. If she had said yes, she said no, I didn't.
Yeah. I feel like same. We had ski trips, and my parents were like,
I did. That's the only time I've ever skied was a school. It was like elementary school ski trip, and like they had the little intro class for the kids who didn't know how to ski on these little tiny,
little bunny hills,
mounds, little bumps, and I caused a pile up, and then I was
see, I don't know. We can snowshoe. We can.
exactly.
I mean, I did cross country sometimes because friends would have that. I would do that. There's so much snow in upstate New York. I would cross country. You can rarely hurt yourself cross country. You're moving at like a snail's pace. Like snails are like speeding past me.
Oh man. I also always forget just how much snow upstate New York gets.
Oh my God. I mean, the bus would leave us because the snowdrift was taller than me and Martha. And we just watched the snow bus, like the bus just like, so much snow.
I have a friend who just moved back to upstate New York from South Carolina, and she just told me that they just got through 39 days of no sunshine. And she was like, I might die. I was like, yeah, I feel that. Luckily, her dad brought her a sun lamp. He saw how she was withering away.
Yeah.
But I forgot about that part. Like, I remember the cold and like all that, but I forgot about the like no sunshine for a month. I don't think I could do that anymore.
It's rough. That's why we are such weirdos, I think. I don't know.
It's very rough. I'd forgotten that the lack of sun affected me until I moved here to Rhode Island. That was my first time living in just moved to Providence, so I was new to the city, was living by myself. And I'm like, oh yeah, the sun really affects me. And if I don't go out and see people, I'm gonna go crazy.
I know. The sun is just in each other, right? Like you find the sun within your many friends and, like fires that people have in their home. But like, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. I really think that if I happened to be in New York this week with these really low temperatures, I would not, I don't know what would have happened to me. I don't think I would have been able to leave the house for sure, but it's incredible, like just what being in the sun. I mean, I think I have accepted that I was not designed for snow or for the winter. It's just not in my DNA. So it's amazing how alive I feel in warm weather. It's like, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah. No. I went to Stockholm for the first time. I was like, oh. Well, one, it made me realize I thought we had darkness. And I got there like, oh, you all know darkness. But also I think you have, as a culture and as a society, evolved to deal with winter better than we have. It's like I should be around a fire all the time or outside, even if it is cold and dark. This weird productivity in between is not what I should be doing.
Yeah. That coziness is pretty good. Winter.
So my goal for each weekend is to be cozy and to lose track of time. I just want to be like hibernate.
Yeah.
Every weekend is what I try to do.
I've been trying to be better I haven't fully achieved it, but having folks over at my house at least like once a week, and like cooking for folks. Yeah, still need to like be better at like planning, getting that invitation out ahead of time. I'm like, oh yeah, I need you in my home. Let's get cozy.
Yeah, I love that.
Or invite me over because I don't want to be here by myself.
Yeah, it's too cold to be alone.
Yeah,
for sure. So what are you teaching over there at RISD in the architecture department?
Yeah, so I co-teach a city studio where we focus on housing and like affordable housing. And we focus on a different city every year. And then I also teach a thesis cohort. So last semester I did a thesis seminar helping my students develop their project. And this semester is a thesis studio where they're producing and thinking about representation and thinking about sort of why they're interested and what they're interested in, but like how do you use different representational mediums to communicate these questions that you're exploring. And then I feel like I've also just been like bopping around to different reviews and like sitting in as a critic, which has also been fun to be like, oh yeah, I'm not an architect by training, so even in architecture reviews, I'm like, I cannot really critique your drawings other than how they communicate. I can't do the technical critiques. But like did a really fun class in the apparel department that they were doing in the museum, thinking about like museum apparel collections and deaccessioning Gilded Age apparel. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about. Yeah, I was like, I don't think about apparel that intimately, but like, oh yeah, what's the relationship between clothing and architecture and urban planning? And like, hopefully, I want to do a speculative regalia course, because looking at the Gilded Age dresses and sort of I was like, oh, not just like indigenous regalia, but like all cultures have their regalia. They're like what you wear to communicate something, ceremonial. And as much as Americans want to pretend that we don't, as much as we try to like separate, we were looking at American Gilded Age dresses because American apparel culture is meant to be sort of counter to the formality of European culture, but also like counter to other sort of indigenous cultures' clothing. But it's like, no, you fit squarely within this. And you just can't accept that. So what does it look like to, one, reintroduce ceremony into American culture, but also like what are the new sort of clothing and tradition in ways of using patterns, especially when we sort of get rid of the hierarchy of literacy. How do we use clothes and apparel to communicate that?
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that like I would not have thought about because I do not deal with clothing or think about clothing that intimately. And I was like, oh, I need to do more with the apparel department.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot, especially because I've worked in highly professional business or government positions where they have like sometimes a book like this of dress code, and I'll like go hard. I'll read every page of that. People are like, you don't really like, no one really cares that much, Amelia. No one's gonna like, fire you for like, section 24 of, like clause B. And I'm like, no, but I'm very into this because this is wild. This is a wild amount of information around my top and bottom and shoes that like were just the ones that were the least wrinkled, so I wore them today. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot. There's a lot there that communicates like what you're allowed to do while working for this company or whatever. It's like, it's fascinating to me. I'm like, if this stuff doesn't matter that much, why is there this many pages about it?
Right.
And if it's like you said, if it's not formal and it's not regalia, but then why is again this much? That seems to me like it is actually regalia and very formalized and to the point. I mean, in the military, obviously they have all those very specific things of hair and jewelry and all of that. And that makes sense because we understand that they're in uniform or in different levels of uniform, dress uniform and active duty uniform and off duty uniform and all that. But then in companies, they have that too, but I think they kind of pretend they don't. They do.
Yeah. They call it a dress code. I'd prefer a uniform over a dress code any day because, especially as a woman, dress codes are so confusing and so ridiculous and like you can never win. So I just want to be like, just give me my like gray unitard suit and let me just go to work.
Yeah, and my little 3 dots and my communicator.
Exactly. That's
recorder,
like,
we're
as
good.
long as I don't have the yellow suit, we're good.
As
The
long as we're
red
not a red
suit. What's the
shirt.
one that
Yeah,
always
don't be the
dies?
red shirt. You don't want to be the red shirt, but
You
like
don't wanna be
as
the
long
red
as
shirt.
anything else.
Justice
Give
for
me
red
the-
shirts.
Yeah,
The
justice
yellow
for red
shirts
shirt.
are just like such side characters. I kind of want to be someone. main
Yeah.
character.
Except unless you're like the counselor, in which case you get a V-neck. So I don't know, but like
No V-neck. That's borderline on the like dress code there.
that's why I wouldn't be the counselor. No. I'm like
Exactly.
janitorial, you've got
not-
that, but I'm not gonna. I don't have the hair to pull it. I have nothing. I'm just like, no. I'll just be just the little communicator. Okay.
Like, so the Star Trek aside, or the little aside about Star Trek. Have you seen Below Decks?
No.
I haven't. Yeah, I've heard it's really funny.
It is really funny, and if you are a Star Trek fan, it is so much like all of the little inside jokes and like the self-deprecating humor about how ridiculous Star Trek is.
It's called Below the Decks.
It's like Star Trek Below Decks.
Is it a podcast or what is it?
It's a cartoon.
Oh, cartoon. Oh my God, amazing. Okay.
I think I saw like a preview for it or something. I forgot about it. But
That's
that looks
amazing.
It was so because I used to watch Star Trek with my parents, and so it's fun. I moved back to Wisconsin during the pandemic, and we're like, cool, we're gonna watch this new Star Trek again. And oh my gosh, this is hilarious because it talks about like, why do y'all treat red shirts like this?
They always die.
Yeah. But also, like, this is a ship of how many thousands of people or how many hundreds of people, but we only focus on like 7 of them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like office drama, but like on a ship that's the size of a city. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, if I was anyone else on that entire ship, I'd be like, those people, man, like really? They get that much control? They're just gonna like make these weird decisions and all of us are gonna die? Like what? Y'all got drunk in the holodeck and now we're all gonna die. Like what's going on?
Oh those below decks, they're like burn the 1%.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, no, it is love Star Trek. But yeah, I was like, how did we get on this? Yeah, because it got me thinking about especially teaching in university, just like again, this like hierarchy of literacy in the written word and sort of the like lack of respect that we have in sort of the society around other ways of knowing and transmitting information. And it's like, oh yeah, a lot of architecture was meant like it communicated something. Even when we have these talks about like, oh, craftsmanship or oh, form versus function or oh, we like missiles of housing. It's like, well, one of those often communicating to the materials, nature, but also sort of spiritual beliefs, or even just like, we don't have an efficient way of building this. So you're going to see how the structure looks, but you're also going to, in that process, see sort of the human interaction in building it. Or like you think of like statues and public art, or even, it's just like there is a way when you have oral traditions of communicating a history or purpose of a building that we've sort of lost because we have a written word, or we assume the written word is the supreme way of communicating things. It's like, well, no, there's dance, there's singing, there's like the patterns in your clothes, there's how you do your hair. How do we sort of level the knowledge transmission field and like add more literacy to those ways of communicating history and communicating our aspirations for the future? But that's for a later class.
No, that's really fascinating. I haven't watched this show. I've only watched the preview of it where it talks about like what would be around like 1,000 years in the future or 2,000 years in the future. Have you seen this show? I've only seen the preview of it, but it's like one of those History Channel shows. I think it's called like What Will Remain or so. I'm like saying all this stuff on the stream without like knowing what I'm talking about. But in the preview of the show, I haven't watched the show. In the preview, it was like even just 1,000 years, suddenly it was like, yeah, there is no written word that remains unless it was chiseled on granite in like a building. They're like the words that are chiseled at the base of like the Lincoln Memorial might partially remain, or just all this kind of like the the obviously anything that's on a computer would be too corrupted to be received. Anything that essentially is etched in stone, architecture, pottery, all those things would be what lasts. Fabric remnants, or things that have been fossilized, but not books.
Yeah. There's
Internet,
Lou has this collection called The Missing Girl, The Hidden Girl. I'm like looking at it on my bookshelf, and the last one is sort of about this, like, a couple thousand years in the future, humans come to sort of this alien planet and are trying to determine what they like observed it from afar. They're trying to figure out what these hieroglyphs mean from this like long dead civilization. And it sort of was like, one, even if you preserve something, then that knowledge doesn't get preserved. How do you find a way to communicate something that is accessible, even if you have no foundation for it? Which is, I won't spoil the ending, but like, is it important? It's like it's an interesting existential question. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I know. I like thinking about that, like thousands of years in the future. I mean, I also frequently, and I think Madabo brought this up as well last stream, what it must have been like to be in the Middle Ages and walking amongst these remnants of cathedrals that no one at that time knew how to make anymore, right? Like you're like, oh, this culture before anyone who's alive that I know made these like really elaborate things that like none of us could recreate, and that's weird. You're like living in the shell of this alien civilization, essentially, right? Like that's wild.
Yeah, I mean, because like I think of these like like thinking of like Damascus, or like all of these cities that have been like inhabited for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Like I remember when I lived in Jordan, or I was living in Amman for a semester, and just like seeing ruins, and just like, oh, we can't recreate that.
Right.
And
We have,
like, you just sort of they're there, like, and it's like, cool. I mean, now we sort of have sort of museums and like archaeology as a practice, but for thousands of years, you sort of just like lived with these things, sometimes used them, sometimes recycled them, but also we're just like, there's that old building that our ancestors built that we don't really use anymore, but also is there, but we can't recreate.
Yeah.
It means something, but we don't really know or care, or we try to pretend like we know or care.
You're right. A lot of times people pretend like they know how they made these things, but then we, for whatever reason, most likely organizationally, right? Like maybe just the fact that our governments don't work so differently and people work so differently that it would never be able to happen again in that way. It's really fascinating. Or maybe will again. I don't know.
Yeah.
I find it to be, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I find it to be humbling. Like I grew up in the city of Amman, as you all know, and I think like I find the more I learn about the stories behind these ruins, like it's humbling. And also there's a lot of grief because I feel like I wish I lived in the in the time when the Nabateans were, because they were also water engineers, and the way they understood water and built systems around it was so advanced that I think also it's like I sometimes want to go back to the future as a result of these ruins,
Yeah. I teach my students that was one of the first instances of AI is that water engineering, because it's a Turing complete water engineering system that they built there. And it is. It just is. It's like the first computer that was ever made, right? But it was made with water.
Wow. I love that. That's so cool.
But that's how complex it was, is it was performing, algebraic like functions, which is amazing.
Which, I mean, I think even that part of just like not being able to understand, like taking for granted sort of how complex and intelligent our like ancestors were. Because even so, like my banner was a polychrome futurist. A lot of my practice of realizing that our understanding of antiquity is because folks in the Middle Ages found marble statues and assumed, oh yeah, ancient Roman Greece, everything was white and clear. It's like, no. Everything was painted. Everything was beautiful. There was lots of color and vibrancy. We often, it's like, we imagine sort of this myth of primitivity to the past. And it's like, one, primitivity is a weird concept that we needed for colonial hierarchy, but also, like, women who were weaving were coding. As you're talking about now, it's like we had turnkey water engineering. We had ways of knowing the things we're trying to do now aren't actually that novel. We just have different materials that have been built upon the expertise that's been passed down through generations or lost, and we have to relearn again, but they are older questions. And yeah, like, the past could be more fun. But also we can't go back to it. So how do we bring something through into the future?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know Eamon was like, does everyone know that we're going to mine all of our lithium? And I'm like, yeah, people all know that. He's like, and that's just okay. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think it's okay. I think it's just like everyone does know that, like, the electronic infrastructure that we're building is based on a material that will, like, we will mine all of it, right? Eventually, very quickly, maybe in our lifetime, right? And yeah, what will happen? What will be the next space that we will store chemical exchanges or information? Eamon's gone down a big wormhole of quantum computing. It takes a lot of energy, though, right, Eamon?
The current quantum computers take a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah.
And they're like, because you have to cool, I'm not an expert on this, but you have to cool the system down to near absolute zero, like 0 Kelvin, which is very energy intensive to do. And then I'm not really sure why you have to do that, but you do. And they're not really practical for anything for research right now, but they do exist, and they're pretty crazy looking. They kind of look like steampunk octopus guys.
Steampunk octopus guys. I love it.
I love that.
You find a photo, Eamon, you share it, because I need to see a steampunk octopus guy. But yeah, they aren't useful yet because they can't produce a predictable result yet. But I mean, predictable for quantum computing, but not like for predictable for storage or operations. But they are really fascinating, but so energy intensive. So it's like the opposite of us being like, oh, we're gonna run out of lithium. It's like, no, let's just like every part type of fuel,
Right.
Like, why? I don't know. Everyone. So, because when I lived in Chicago, I worked as more transportation modeler and planner. But people would always be like, self-driving cars, electric cars, that's going to fix everything. I'm like, a car is not going to save us. The car has never saved us. And if it relies on us finding a new limited resource, it's not going to save us.
Yeah, well, not to mention that we still use fossil fuels to charge all those batteries, right? Like, it's it's like a different a different use of a fossil fuel.
Right.
Yeah. And like the only way we're able to even afford lithium, a rare earth mineral, is because we don't pay the people who are mining. And so this isn't really the way forward, but it is the path we're on, question mark. Which again gets me thinking about even just like ancient city planning. Because I remember when I lived in Amman, because I was like, I'm going to work for the State Department, and then I realized I don't actually know why, as an American, I'm trying to influence how another country functions, because I feel like Amman has been around for a long time. I think they've figured out a different logic for how a city should work and how people should interact with each other. I think they do a better job at taking care of the elderly than we do in America. Why am I telling them what to do? And it's just like, what is a different logic for cities our community, not even cities in the future, but our communities in the future. And it's not building new ones. It's like, how do we use the ruins of what we have now and adjust and adapt to a different sort of logic of how we relate to each other? Get back to the trees and slowing down and connecting.
Yeah.
How do we reorient cities for connection in that way?
And for care,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. As poor as it is, you will never see like a houseless person in the streets or an elderly person. That's like, it's very, very rare. And they don't really have elder care centers, but that's very much part of the culture, and it's a part of I think the majority of I hate to use that term, the global south, but the majority of the world, I would say, or the global majority is has figured out in some ways like care networks.
Well, I mean,
for survival.
History, that's how, like, the idea of a single family home is in the nuclear family is a like modern aberration. Like there wasn't care facilities. When you got old, you lived with your family, or your family lived down the street, or not even down the street, like lived next to you. And so you continue to care for each other. Even the idea of retirement, it's like you retired because your job changed, because your body changed, but you were still part of community. It's only, again, sort of modern mythology that like, oh yeah, when you're old, or when your parents get older, you put them in a home, or when you as a child become an adult, you move out and live by yourself. That didn't, it was like, we've tried to create this way of hyper individualism, even at the family level. We design cities around that, but it doesn't work and people don't want it. As I keep getting these TikToks from like boomers being like, my kids don't talk to me, I miss my kids. It's like, well, it is unaffordable for them to live, but you've also pushed them out of, like, we created a structure that doesn't support you as a family. We've created communities that don't support families. Suburbs aren't for families. As I'll always argue, they are good for parenting. They're not good for being a kid. Being a grandparent or being elderly.
Totally.
And I remember coming back from Jordan, like, oh, I need to plan financially to like be able to afford a place where my parents, if they need to, could also live with me and like spend time between me and my siblings. And that is like a financial consideration I have to have, or I should have. But
yeah, my son came in my room like very late at night. Like I'm like almost asleep. He's like, hello. I was like, hello, child. And he's like, I have anxiety. I'm like, same, bro. What's going on? And he's like, well, some people are saying like you shouldn't live at home, or if you live at your home, your parents are mad at you. They think you're a bad kid. And I was like, such a short moment in time that idea got formalized, very short amount of time. Like, go a little bit back, like my father grew up with his grandparents in his house, and then he lived at home for a while, and then he lived at home while he was working in his dad's mechanic shop, and then he was living in the mechanic shop, like, or the shed above the mechanic shop, so that he could help customers. I was like, this has been only in my generation, and even my generation. My sister lived with my parents while she was married, and that, I just kind of described to him everything on my side of the family and how no one on our side of the family had done this thing he's saying is the normal thing. Then I said, my son's Costa Rican. Then I'm like, now let me tell you about your Costa Rican family. And I'll describe every single person in their family. None of them have ever done it. Like, whose family are you talking about? You're not talking about our family. You're not talking about the natives or the Jews or the Costa Ricans. Like, none of them have lived this way. Who is telling you these things? Who are these bad influencing kids here? Don't jump. If they would jump off a bridge, would you leave the house? I don't know. I'm just like, this is a very weird, like, thing that he's hearing from some kind of culture. And I said, was it a specific friend? He's like, no. It's just like the representation in media essentially is like, in these shows, they're always like, my good for nothing kid that stays home, right? And they say this over and over. And that's weird. And it's not been true in my lifetime or my parents' lifetime or their parents' lifetime. So who is these people?
It's a lot of pressure. My oldest is going off to college, and she is just like, I have to live on campus. I have to go off and be on my own. I have to. I'm like, well, I mean, you can, but like, you don't have to. You can save money, but that's a whole nother story.
I mean, obviously, I was the one who wanted to, I wanted to always be on my own and not live at home. Because I have a wilder personality, but the way that my son's personality is also very normal too. So it's kind of like, what this idea that there's good kids and they leave and bad kids and they stay. That's wild.
And I'm just like, the way everything is costing, stay at home. I moved back to Wisconsin for 2 years. After I graduated from my master's program, I was like working. I mean, COVID also influenced like, I don't need to move. I'm just gonna stay in my parents' house. But also just being like, oh, this is also so much easier to maintain a household when you have more adults around. And like, oh yeah, the way my parents lived, it's like, I guess not my dad's side, my mom's side, they're product of the Great Migration. So they all moved up as a family together, and either like while someone was getting themselves set up, they would live in someone's basement, and then they would move to a house like around the corner. And so like, even if you didn't live together, you're basically together in each other's homes, and you could support each other. And again, back to trees, you live around each other so you can help each other and spend time with each other. And like, that's how we're supposed to be. We just haven't figured out like how to do that in sort of highly mobile society anymore. Like what is, that I can't figure out, because I'm also like, we should live together. I don't want roommates again.
So, no, totally. And it was
tiny houses on a commune, guys.
I know Martha and my oldest is they say they're always like, come and just move on my commune. But it was exciting for a minute. I mean, I think when I was working at a startup during COVID, that was the number one thing I heard from people while we were remote, is that, I moved back to live with my parents, not necessarily in their same house, but I'm now in the same neighborhood as my parents, or I'm in the same city as my parents. So many people said that, like, I'm so happy. I thought I wasn't going to be able to do this for 40 more years. Now I'm back with my family. And that was the most common thing that people did, was say, oh yeah, while we're remote, I'm going to move, maybe I'll have to move back when we go back in person, but for this, whatever time, I'm going to take this opportunity and live near my ailing parents or my sister who just had a baby, or, that was just what everybody said. And I thought, that's so lovely. What if that just became an option? I mean, obviously we're seeing a lot of blowback from a lot of companies that are like, JK, you're never allowed to do that again. Which is too bad, I think, because I think we were all very successful working from home. But
and I don't know that that'll last, because I think people are kind of like, we did it and it worked. So get it together.
Yeah.
Or I'll go somewhere else that did get it together.
Yeah. Well, and I understand that there were some people that just don't like working that way. So I think there's a lot of, I don't know, having worked in a startup, people were really good at having hybrid options, like being like, but I think that's how tech is. Tech is like, all right, and you are in this time zone and you're in that time zone, you're in that time zone. Great. This is how we like be very organized and we figure this out, but.
Also, are you beating? Who?
I am.
I love that.
That's why I keep being down here.
No, I was like, I've been noticing, and I was like, oh, what is she? Ooh.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Martha makes these really good patterns for them.
Sometimes.
No.
Sometimes it depends. Lately, I can either design a pattern or I can pick a color palette, but I can't do both. I don't know.
Just get like Midjourney to pick your palette color,
Actually, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Actually, I want Midjourney to design a pair of earrings for me, and then I'm going to make them.
Okay, let's try it. We haven't done a prompt today, so like let's bring it on there. Let's see here. present.
Identity prompt.
All right.
I'm not using Midjourney.
Let's see here. All right, Martha, what is your prompt?
What should we do? Like
A pair of beaded earrings with colors like the sunset.
that
I think of
works.
some evocative words. In LA, because Nora's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I like that sunset in LA. I like it.
All right. Oops. That's a 5 value. Did I not work that? All right. All right, we'll see what it says. We always use Midjourney to do something ridiculous on this stream. So
And I'm really interested to see what it thinks like beaded things are.
yeah. I mean, well, whenever we give it like indigenous or native prompts, it always is like the weirdest stuff where you're like, what is that? Okay, I think it's almost done. They're looking okay. Oh, okay. Well, hey,
That doesn't look like LA, but I like.
the cactus is not making me feel LA, but the lower left one feels like LA colors.
Yeah.
I like that one. Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
Yeah. Huh.
I'm not crazy about these color palettes. I'm not gonna
I'm
lie.
not crazy about it.
But that could have been just like it. I don't know. We could try something. What is another type of? I like how this earring is like the one thing isn't attached on the other one. It's just like
Just like floating. Yeah.
what? All right. Do we have a better one, Martha?
Should we just say like native beaded, or does that make it get too weird? Indigenous? What words does it not like?
I mean, really, anything indigenous or native comes real weird. But okay, we say a pair of indigenous beaded earrings.
How about let's do a pink palette? I've been trying to work on a pink palette.
Ooh. I've been trying to get more pink into my wardrobe.
Pink is
So
so
I got
great.
that like hot pink Telfar, so I need some more.
Ooh, jealous.
I know.
So when I was in Stockholm, I bought this like pink H&M
Oh,
like
Love it.
I
Yeah.
love it. You definitely need the pink Telfar. Maybe that one's more bubblegum, than fuchsia, but yeah,
Thalia.
for sure. Yeah.
Hey, I gotta go to campus, but love you. See you later. Have fun.
Thanks for joining, Abe.
Bye. Good to share virtual space.
Absolutely.
Did you not do your prompt on this one?
Did I not do my what? Oh, did I not do Imagine? It says waiting to start. Pink. I mean that Valentino show where every single thing was pink. I was so into it, and they just played Cocteau Twins like the entire time and had like every single dress was pink. I was so into it. I watched that. I even made Eamon watch that fashion show, and he's like, he was upset about it for like the first 5 minutes, and then he's like, it's just still pink, and I'm like, just wait for it. He's like, it's still pink. I'm like, just wait for it. He's like, it's still pink. And then after like 45 minutes, he's like, this is the best thing ever. It's just pink. I'm like, yeah, it's pink forever.
I love
it.
That one was probably my favorite fashion show for a while, just because kind of something about like doing something so you're like committing to one color. You're like, it's just this one color.
I like that.
I was like, I have to watch this.
It's very uniformish, I kind of like that. I take that.
I mean, yeah. All right, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna take it off the we'll see how long it takes. I don't know why it's not taking very long.
I did this other one. I did kind of a different one.
Ooh. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I need to get my nose re-pierced. I was like looking at my picture. I'm like, oh, that's right. I had my nose pierced and I had surgery and had to take it out and haven't put it back. But I also want my ears pierced because I'm just like, earrings are so cool.
They are so cool. I did the same thing. I had to take my nose ring out for like an MRI or whatever, and then just closed up. I haven't done it again. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm just, I don't know.
I'm like, want to do it because I just want like a gold hoop. But yeah, I'll do it eventually.
All right, I think it's ready here, or almost ready. There you go. Okay, this is pink. I don't know if I'm wild about those pink palette either.
No, I kind of like the one in the right corner,
The top right corner.
the bottom.
I
the
was like
bottom.
the bottom right.
Kind of flower
Yeah.
looking one, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
top
And I-
left is giving me like vagina vibes somehow. I don't know. Like,
I mean,
not
not
in
that
good
that's a
way,
bad
though.
thing, but I don't
No, but
like
like not in a good
Not
way,
in a-
actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a great way, but
Sure, but
sometimes
that's
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not.
No. I
Well,
like
that's
the
the most-
lower right because it has also those like iridescent beads that I love that are like the mirrored kind at the top.
Oh yeah.
So I do like that. And then the black and blue and yellow. Yeah. I feel like
These aren't bad. I like
these aren't bad.
They're just small,
I
you
like
know,
the
not
white
these big
side.
long frames.
Yeah. They also are really bad at beading. Do you see how untight those beads are? Psst. Ridiculous. Come on. And they're not even uniform size. Like, who are these people? Midjourney can't bead. Can't bead. Shameful. Cheap beads. Look at that. Oh. Yeah. Well, you gotta work with what you have, I guess.
Isn't fingers from Midjourney.
They're
One of
bad
these
beads.
times I'll make them. I'll pick like the ugliest pair that Midjourney can possibly
Oh,
make.
yeah.
I'll make
Oh,
those.
yeah. Oh, the other one that I thought wasn't gonna come through just came through. This is the one I thought. This one, it's funny how it's like on a little ceramic cup with like a cactus at
that's
the
so
bottom of that
cute.
cactus. What?
Oh yeah.
These ones are really weird.
They are really weird. I feel like the shapes are just like wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
The one on the top left just makes me like I don't know why it gives me like cephalopod vibes.
Ooh.
Me like
I
a
don't like it. I don't like it.
weird
No.
cuttlefish.
Speaking of cephalopods, Eamon before he left gave me the photo of the
Oh, the
quantum computer.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
He wasn't wrong. It does look like a cephalopod. Or what did he say? An octopus, a steampunk octopus sky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
A
accurate.
steampunk octopus sky it is, right?
It's what I would
Like,
imagine.
it gave me like some kind of Matrix vibes.
Yeah, I was like either Matrix vibes or like I'm exploring the bottom of the ocean and this thing just like appears and sucks me into the underwater matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Quantum computers. Amazing. Yeah.
So what labs have this quantum computer? know?
This one's the IBM one, which is probably the most famous quantum computing lab. At least for me, like the only quantum computing like lab folks that I've met have been from IBM that do like try to do a lot of applications, but they do exist in a lot of universities. So I would say like universities have them, IBM has them, and then probably other companies have them too. Sometimes they might be public about it, sometimes not, right? Like as all research is, sometimes it's just
I was just wondering if they're at some of the like national labs like Sandia or Los Alamos.
I can't imagine they wouldn't, right? Like they have to be doing all that just for security reasons and everything, right? Like they have to understand it. Because people are always like, the future of cybersecurity is quantum. And I'm like, I mean, look, if we're depending our security on quantum right now, like it's so unpredictable, I would definitely just like wait before you put anything that needs to be securing on these things. But you know, that's just me. But yes, I'm sure that every government organization that needs to or agency that needs to work on computing has something that they're doing on it because they have to know about it if it could cause any kind of problems, right? Even if the chemicals could cause problems, they would need to research it, right?
And I mean, if it is so energy intensive, you're gonna look up what's going on now.
Yeah, very, very well. Quantum computing,
I remember being at MIT and actively trying to avoid letting people know that I knew anything about computers. So don't ask me to help with. Actually, I feel a little bad because my friends were taking a quant class, and I was like, if you don't This used to be my job. Don't ask me about it.
I know, but quants just use spreadsheets anyways. They're just like,
yeah, it was a whole lot of like R coding, but like,
oh yeah.
It's just like, I knew how to do this. If you Google me, you can see. I have, I think, one video on YouTube of like a masterclass I taught, or masterclass. I just talked about some code I wrote.
Really? On R?
Yeah.
That's so cool. What did you do?
So we had I was working for the regional planning agency in Chicago, CMAP. We were working on a regional freight model because like most of the United States freight traffic goes through Chicago, and so, but as we are in the United States, we don't like to invest in our infrastructure, and so we're trying to figure out how to prioritize infrastructure. And so we're working with some consultants to design this freight model that sort of broke up the region and the country and the world into different sort of zones and mesozones. And I was mostly creating R to like either simulate NAICS code, commodities. So I was like, what did I do? I haven't used it in a while. Simulating commodities, but also sort of testing sort of quality control. So testing sort of how the model's distributing commodities and like pairing simulated firms versus like the data that we did have. Yeah. And so I was just going through some of my code, and it's like, yeah, I studied policy and international studies. I had to learn this on the job, and you can do it too.
That's awesome.
And
I really like R. I mean, I think a lot of, I don't know, like Eamon is super into Python, so he's always just like, whatever, you don't need R. But I'm like, but you can do Python in R. You can do everything in R. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, neural networks in R, you know, like what?
I like used the Pythons. I like made a Python script to interact with GIS to pull in some data, and then you have it in my R. I was like, look at me, I'm a. And then
I know, and then now you can like share your little notebooks with people. I like R. I like, but you know, it does seem like it's more of a any role that you have that might touch government data. It seems like the best thing to use, I think, still. So I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people still use it.
Yeah.
I haven't done it since college, but it was fun in college.
I wish we did. It was MATLAB, and then I had to learn SAS. And I was like, this data is too big. I'm not breaking everything up into like 4 different CSV files. No, we're just using R. So.
Yep.
Wow, I haven't talked about.
Well, you're with a bunch of nerds right now, so you know.
Yeah, I'm like, that's different lifetime, different me.
Yeah, but it's really cool to have come from that background and then be talking to people who are looking at fabric and costuming and architecture and just having that type of data perspective. It's interesting. It's cool. I feel like we, as people who've interacted with unfiltered data, know how much we don't know, and we look at things differently because of that.
Yeah. Or even, I think for me, it made it very clear how also just like storytelling, like everything is a story. I'm like, yeah, we have all this data, but you can't comprehend and interpret all of it. So I'm going to tell you a story of what it means. And even if I give you data and tell you what it means, if you have another story that you want to believe about what you want to do, no amount of data is going to change that. I think that was the thing I learned in like government, was just like, oh, I could give you all the data in the world. I can paint you a clear picture. But if there's a story about what you want for the future and how you're imagining the future, you can exert your political will to make that data more compelling. Which was like, oh, I need politicians and policymakers to be a little more imaginative about what the future could be. Yeah. Because again, I was like, y'all, stop asking me about self-driving cars. We cannot maintain our existing road infrastructure. You want me to add computers to all of it? You want your city government to maintain all of these sensors with what money that you don't want to pay?
I know.
Seriously. Could we give kids free lunch at school, all of them first? I mean, come on.
I was like, we could get free lunch. We could get free public transportation. Like, why do you need a self-driving car?
Yeah, why aren't we just making like really cool subway train, electric, solar powered, like whatever, so that no one ever has to drive again? Because who wants to drive? Not me. Nor do I really want to be on the road with anyone else driving.
Yeah.
Well, it's shocking how old like the tube is in the UK and the subway system is in New York. I mean, they're so old, and they're obviously there's been tons of repair and tons of maintenance on them and everything, but that they're still humming.
They are, and they don't need to be totally reimagined either. So I think we can just improve on that.
They're like, I mean, not fully reimagined, but they kind of do. I have my complaints about our spoken wheel models in contemporary cities. It's like, no, why are we centralizing everything? That's not how people function.
Yeah, totally.
From Brooklyn to Queens and like why can't I just get everywhere?
Oh yeah. You have to definitely go into Manhattan just to go to Queens, even though you could walk there in 20 minutes. So it's like, buses in New York are great. Everyone would hate me for saying that, but like they are.
Buses are the unsung hero of our transportation.
Totally.
Let me see if
That's what we should have. We need to be having like trains and buses and just no cars on the road, just buses.
This is my old.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. I love it.
If anyone from CTA is watching, I bought this. It was decommissioned. I did not steal it.
Yeah, there we go.
That's amazing. I love that. Oh man. I know when I lived in Costa Rica, they had buses. I mean, barely functioning bus. They were like so old. They were from, the 70s and 80s, but they went anywhere. And if you didn't really know where you were going, you're like, I know my friend's house is that way. You would just get on a bus that's going that way and then tell the person, okay, let me off in this like ditch. And they're like, okay. And then you just like walk like through the, sort of the jungle and then get to their house that way. And it was like, it worked. And it was so inexpensive. You're just like, I'll take this one there, then that one there, then that one back there. And then I kind of get close to my friend's house. And it was like, I don't really know any of the routes. It didn't matter. If one was going the direction you were walking, it was like, great.
Yeah. I'm like, we didn't need, I don't know. We don't need to have everything super formalized. Actually, that was my frustration with Lyft and Uber when I first moved back. So like, oh, you're just trying to recreate all the like informal transit systems in every other country. And of it, which is like, I guess not innovative when it comes to like making money. But I'm also like, I wonder if their business model is going to be like trains and buses where they were private, but like it's not very viable in an affordable sense. So you're going to have to sell that to the government. I think a lot of cities are just going, because it's now an essential part of the transit system. I imagine a future where like a fleet of cars is just part of your CTA pass and you like pay that way, or your whatever, or I guess you won't even have a physical pass anymore. You just like swipe or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in New York, like if your company gave you those MTA benefits, which not all companies do, but like I worked for a FCC like regulated company, and so we had those those cards. But it would also work with not an Uber, but its own app, where a car would come, and the car had to be able to hold more than 8 people in it. And so it was like those big like escalators, and they would come like a really big one, and I could ride in it, and it could go certain places, and it would be on my card, which was very weird. And I was like, but again, it was only for people who had a company that gave you that
money
thing that they got a tax break on and everything, right? Like they got, that was like free or a break or in some way for them. But like, yeah, it has to all be through our work, health insurance through our work, free rides through our work,
Yeah. A mess. We could be different. It could be so different.
Well, I appreciate you dreaming with us about all the different ways that we could be. And I'm so excited about hearing continuously about all the amazing things you're doing with your students. Come back again and tell us how your regalia class worked, because that would be so cool.
If it happens, if it happens, I will be inviting you. So
Yes, we can all, the whole Climate Lounge can come and do a online vibe with them. That would be amazing.
yeah, thanks for having me on. Anytime I get to chat with you, I'm like, yes, of course.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you. All right, I think we'll end the broadcast, but we'll still be on. We can just chat for a second. But bye, everyone. Thanks for joining Climate Lounge, a vibe shift for your day with Lafayette Cruise.